The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
Good evening and welcome to My State of Mind. I am Dan Yorke. We take a respite from the politics of the day and talk sports tonight. But then again, sports is politics and COVID is politics and sports is COVID and COVID is sports. And the whole thing is just a mess, right? It's great to have you aboard, and it's great to have Andy Gresh with me. Andy, of course, weeknights 6 to 9 on WPRO and on the CBS television network. We're going to cover the bases in terms of the pulse of the sports community, the fans, and the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball, NFL, college, all of that. You're watching this most likely on Thursday night. It's an original broadcast recorded on Monday of this week due to some production schedule issues, and you'll probably see it a couple of times over the course of the next few days in the holiday weekend. So enjoy. And with no further ado, here he is, my long-lost friend, Andy Gresh. I don't know what's scarier, looking at you this close or that visual of the old you behind you. It's quite the moment.
Unseemly, I guess some would say. Well, Dave Yorke, first of all, thank you. Glad to know that you're not just a sleepy guy in a basement somewhere. And this is in the back corner of my bedroom. So whenever my wife walks into this room, we basically pushed me to one side because I do my other TV whatnot on just in front of me. I got like banners hanging and stuff. So yeah, it's a completely different world that we live in right now. I mean, look at you. You're in the bunker that Trump goes to whenever there's protesters outside the White House.
Oh, my goodness. It is. Look, you know what? Truth be told, I'm as confused as ever, not about life, but, well, that too, but about sports. So I've been craving you. Before we even get into the who's doing what and how the hell are they going to get it done, what's it been like, brother, to actually conduct sports talk since this COVID thing hit?
The first 2 months, Dan, honestly, I didn't think it was that hard because it was the anticipation of coming back. Who was going to be the first sport to jump back in without fans? And how are they going to integrate COVID testing? We've now seen the PGA Tour. NASCAR was really the first big major touring league that was back, and they sort of shrunk the schedule, got rid of the fans. That sport, along with golf, it was kind of easy. But when you think of the live crowd being a part of the event, like I can watch Dustin Johnson hit the ball off the tee, and I don't need, Chucky from Dorchester or Colchester because they were in Connecticut standing there yelling, whatever it would be at him as he's hitting the ball off the tee. But when you watch a UFC event, Dan, or you watch some other sport, look, WWE for whatever it's worth, right? It's sports, it's fun, there's athleticism involved, but you realize how much the crowd is a part of it and how crowd participation really does sort of complete the picture, so to speak. So for some sports, I thought it would be pretty easy for them to reacclimate. And for some, you realize how much the fans are a part of that live experience. And it has changed for me the way I view some of those sports.
Well, I get that, and I want to dig deeper into that because there's so many decisions that have to be made. And thankfully, I got you here to tell me about, each league. I have my own notes on this, but I need a little refresher as to who's doing what where. How's the radio show been, both locally and nationally? What's the tone and the tenor of the fans and the dialogue and all of that?
Well, when it comes to Colin Kaepernick, Dan, in terms of the national stuff, some people, most are on the, hey, I'm for the movement, and by God, the NFL screwed this guy, so he should get a job back. So Colin Kaepernick has very much been a part of the discussion. And, last night on my national show, I talked about how, all right, so where are all the Kaepernick people screaming that this guy didn't get this job that Cam Newton did? And I went down a couple different roads that some people didn't like because, number one, Cam's established. Number two, I do think the fact that Cam's an African-American calms some people down in terms of their criticism as to why Kaepernick didn't get that job. So, Dan, I think there is like from the 30,000-foot view, the intersection of sports and life. And locally, it's been very much about, sort of how people are sort of reacting around here. We have gotten into how, the local sports have been impacted. Will there be fans for the Patriots? The first 2 months, it was okay. After that, it's starting to slow down a little bit because like with Major League Baseball and the NBA, we're now just waiting for them to go to wherever they're going to go and go play their games and get everything back rolling again. But it's allowed me to, quite honestly, kind of mess around and make fun of politics and stuff like that.
So the God bless him, George Floyd tragedy and the Rayshard Brooks tragedy are fueling a national conversation that I certainly understand not only bleeds over in sports, but is becoming, sports is a reflection of society and sometimes at the head of a lot of conversation. What's the appetite been for the average sports fan who tries to just get away from that, who craves sports, or are you finding that people are finding? Are you hearing say they're just not missing it very much, or? Tell me about the tone, because on the golf course, which is my only respite, I've been able to get out there. The only place that feels semi-normal, for a 3 or 4 hour period of time. Some guys have said, you know what, I don't know, I'm okay. The baseball thing, I missed the playoffs, but there's I think COVID has been such a drain on us that some folks are just coping with it okay for now.
I would agree. And I think people want the games and they want something to watch, but maybe they don't want to dig into the minutia that is around really a lot of the discussions that I think you have to have. Like when Kyrie Irving, right, for as much as he's a rube and just a dissenter to be a dissenter, when Kyrie Irving brings up, hey, man, do you think we could do better in terms of our social protesting by not playing basketball? Those are some of the discussions that people are getting into, Dan, and it's unavoidable. Like for me as a sports guy, I'm with you. And at least the strategy for me that I've tried to do is the first hour I try to do the sports stuff, so to speak, stay on the field, have the right interview. And then as the show goes on, you open it up and get into maybe some of the more social issues that people are willing to talk about or talk through with sports. But look, I can't avoid it, right? If LeBron James says, I'm not playing basketball because I think I can do better this summer staying away from the game and impacting society, then that's a story you just can't get away from. But I do think people are ticked at baseball because regardless of the optics and how it went down, they don't want to hear billionaires arguing with millionaires, at least in the minds of most people. And in terms of the NBA, I think a lot of it, Dan, is there are people that are legitimately curious as to how those players are going to go about furthering the cause of social initiatives that those guys were already caring about before this all happened.
So, when we come back with Andy, we'll break down each of the leagues, what they're doing, and what their mission is, and what the impact's going to be, and what the real feel is going to be. Andy Gresh, of course, weeknights 6 to 9 on WPRO and on the CBS National Network. Needs no introduction. We'll be right back. Stay with us on Dan Yorke. And welcome back to My State of Mind. It's more than a pleasure to have my friend Andy Gresh back on with me here on the television side. Honestly, he and I, this is the first time we've seen each other in a matter of 3 months.
Yep.
Every night and share time on the radio. So I'm craving my buddy and the conversation. What these tentative plans, Greshy? This doesn't feel real to me. I'm sorry. I'm a sports guy, but this doesn't feel real to me. Let's start with the NBA. They're going to go down to Orlando, and they're going to stay in the same place, and they're going to start at the end of the month. And are they really competing for a championship? You think once they get into the competition, they'll feel that way? Will fans watch it with that kind of fervor from a distance on TV? Would you tell me?
I think the way the NBA has gone about this is brilliant on a couple of levels. Number one, their main partner is ABC Disney. So considering that Disney's probably looking at them and saying, hey, you're not going to give us all the games, but here's a way we can make you whole. Bring all your players down here. Everybody will know they're in Orlando at Disney World. We'll separate them. We'll come up with a system to get rid of half of these people within 2-3 weeks, and then we can get down to the playoffs. And from a business end, it makes sense for the NBA. And Dan, what I think they're doing is they're giving us a little taste of preseason, but they're dressing it up in terms of the winning percentages for all of these teams will determine who ends up getting into what is the traditional NBA playoff bracket and tournament. But the NBA is also messing around a little bit here, Dan. You know, they're bringing back 22 teams because they wanted to, if we're going to be real about it, wanted to find a way to get the great Zion Williamson back on the court so the NBA could get that rub early of having Zion out there. And then when his team gets eliminated before the playoffs, you've primed everybody, and now you're giving them playoff action. I don't mind the bubble. I think it's the right way to go, considering you're bringing all these teams there. And quite honestly, it's a bunch of dudes with money, and normally come playoff time, they're in those cities, they're out there having fun. This will be an interesting, how should I say this? It's almost like Costanza. This will be an interesting sociological experiment as much as it will be a medical experiment within these games in terms of what you're going to learn about COVID. But also, can these guys sit still for 2 months and focus on trying to win a championship?
And you know, not to get ahead of ourselves here, but how does that impact potential next season, which would have begun in the fall, in September, training in October, and the games begin late October, November anyway? I mean, is that to be determined? Is that not even that's not even on the board?
I think there's a general plan, Dan, to try to start in early December. Some of that will depend on if they say, hey, we'll be ready January 1st to have fans in the stands. I think the NBA is flexible enough to be able to push it back. But look, if the NBA finals go the distance, you're looking at October 13th. Then it's, well, we're going to have the draft, which has been on hold. So you got a bunch of college kids right now who are coming to the NBA, who are sitting around not even knowing where they're going to play next year. And then it will be a quick training camp and then back up on the old horse once again. But will that be November? Will it be early December? This is one of those where I got to go Dr. Fauci and say the virus might guide us. But, Dan, I think the plan right now is finish this year, take a little break, retool the teams with free agency in the draft, let those teams have a training camp, and then maybe beginning of December, you start playing regular season games and you just push the schedule back a little bit so you don't completely mess up the whole television grid for the networks.
You think across the board, these guys want to sweat with each other right now?
Yeah, because A, I think they want to get back and finish what they started. And B, you know, in a way, Dan, for teams that have a chance to win a championship or that are good, this is an amazing hit of the reset button for everybody to be able to get healthy. When you think about some of the dings that the Celtics players have had, now everybody is going to go in fresh in theory. So it's almost like it's the beginning of a new season, except you have experience and chemistry playing together. So for the teams that are really well coached, and I think the Celtics are one of them with Brad Stevens, to me, these teams have an opportunity and a chance to be able to really make some hay because they're healthy and they're well organized.
Hockey?
Well, the NHL, Dan, is trying to decide where they're going to, quote unquote, post up for their return. It's down to 6 cities. Las Vegas and LA are 2 of them. Chicago's the other one. And then it's 3 Canadian cities, which quite honestly, go to Edmonton. I'm sure Canadian government would love to be able to say that the NHL is going to have their playoffs here in this Canadian city to be able to ramp up some anticipation. But really, Dan, the NHL is trying to figure out where they're going to send their East Coast teams and where they're sending their West Coast teams. I think the West Coast teams are going to end up being sent to Vegas, plenty of hotel rooms. And I think the East Coast teams, believe it or not, I think they're going to end up in Toronto. It just makes too much logistical sense than sending all those East Coast teams to Chicago.
In baseball, 60-game season, a lot of bitterness. You think the numbers and the ratings for all these 3, adjusted Major League seasons will be as high as ever?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This will be the sports drug. People will be itching for it. I mean, just smacking the old arm for it, quite honestly. And look, here's the thing that baseball's relying on, Dan, that for years, they have thumbed their nose to the fans for years. They shut down the playoffs in the World Series in '94. They brought people back with the home run race and Cal Ripken. And now that people are getting more hip to the business of sports, you now realize that it's a bunch of people with a lot of money arguing with a bunch of people with a lot more money. And it'll be like it always is. People will come back. The difference is, Dan, people are now, I think, folks in the TV biz are getting hip to the game with baseball. The average age of the baseball fan is around 57 years old. And talking to someone in that age group, I'm not going to insult those people. Nevertheless, if that's the base of your sport and, you know, old Grandpa Dan isn't handing it down to little Jimmy, the grandson, or something like that, but I use you as an example, but in all seriousness, I got a 15, 18-year-old kid. They couldn't care less about baseball right now. They're more interested in UFC Fight Night than they are wondering whether the Red Sox are going to have enough left-handers out of the bullpen to make it through a 60-game season.
They're going to have to make it TV ready, no doubt. The big question for a lot of fans here is, will there be football? Cam Newton is now going to be a New England Patriot. We'll talk about that when we come back with Andy Gresh on My State of Mind Sports. Andy Gresh, of course, you're hearing weeknights on WPRO from 6 to 9 on the CBS Sports Radio Network. Andy, a couple of minutes on football. I mean, I hope to revisit this with you over the course of the summer because I don't know what they're doing. Are you confident at all about any resemblance of a regular season NFL product?
Oh yeah. Look, they're not going to slow down. Dan, the thing about the NFL is the majority, if not all of their player costs are basically covered by the television money. So deliver the television product, and you're going to have that big chunk of revenue to make sure that you can pay the players, which would be the most important piece of this. Now, look, in terms of the protocol, I can tell you this from a football player standpoint, there's going to be a lot of guys there who will kind of follow along, but eventually they're not going to. And even though the NBA is going to bubble up to shut those guys down, the one thing I do worry about with the NFL players is, will they be able to stay in at night and protect themselves to get through what really is a 6-month season, not just the 4-month regular season, but there's too many dollars for the NFL not to play this year.
Will the NFL travel, or are they going to bubble up too?
No, I think they're going to travel, and I think what they'll do is it'll just be get in, get out. In that, you're going to fly on a Saturday, you're going to get to the town, you're just spending the night, and then you're done from there. So if you have a West Coast trip, a lot of teams would fly out a day or two early or maybe even train out there, which, by the way, Dan, I do think the Patriots are going to look into. They got those funky LA games like on a Sunday night and a Thursday night. I think they're just going to stay out there. That might be a little problematic, but no, I think they're going to travel. I think they're also, Dan, going to develop what would be like a spit shield for the inside of face masks, and we'll see if players can sort of adapt to it from a breathing standpoint. But I'm expecting the NFL to be full steam ahead just without fans until these states open up that they can jam people into the building.
So, testing is going to be every other day. NBA, I guess the NHL will do the same thing, if not every day, and the NFL is going to have to do the same thing. The testing is going to be nonstop, correct?
Yeah, I would think that it's every 3 days or so, which everyone will settle into. Lord knows these leagues got plenty of money to be able to buy tests. And I hope, Dan, that in certain markets for all of these sports leagues, that they're taking a little bit of money and they're maybe funneling some tests in their local markets so that while they're gobbling up a bunch of tests to be able to give us the entertainment we're craving right now, that they are trying to do something good off of it by supplying tests to the community, because there's plenty of money to do so.
In a couple of minutes, this pro sports thing, fine. There's no way we're going to see a collegiate sports schedule, right? There's no way.
Well, it depends. I think for college football and college basketball, set those aside. But in terms of lacrosse, in terms of soccer, field hockey, things like that, no, I think it's going to be a very different kind of season. And Dan, not to jump up on the old soapbox here, but what has been exposed is Title IX is great in theory. However, from a financial standpoint, what are the sports that are getting clipped? It's all the non-revenue sports that have to be in place because of Title IX. But the big money sports, like Dan, if you think the SEC ain't playing football this year, especially with what's going on in some of them southern states that are DeSantis-led, you're nuts. They are playing ball down there.
How can I only have a minute here? How can they do that if they don't have kids on campus? We're gonna call the student athlete something very different. I mean, this is going to end the myth, by the way, of the student athlete.
Oh, no question. You know what it is? It's the Bob Knight theory. 20,000 people don't show up to see a kid in chemistry class. But if you have these student athletes that are producing all this money, I think in the SEC alone, each school got like a $40 to $45 million disbursement from the SEC network, which is based on them playing sports. So, yeah, they are different than the normal college athlete.
You know, I've been joking that I won't need a microphone to introduce the starting lineup at URI. We're on the public address announcer because there'll be nobody in the building. Do you think, though, we'll be fanless all the way through?
I don't. I think during football season, there's a good chance that we are. I don't know what Texas and Florida and South Carolina and some of these other states are going to end up doing, but I would dare say that before the end of the college basketball season, people will be able to take in the dulcet tones of Dan Yorke as PA announcer at URI. In fact, I'd bet the old bottom dollar on that one, that at some point there'll be someone there to yell, some mom will yell that you got a name wrong for someone on the other team.
We'll check in with Greshy a lot and make sure you do with his radio show each night from 6 to 9 on WPRO. And you're the best. Stay healthy. I know you will, and I know you are.
Well, you're very kind. I'm glad to see that you're okay in the bunker, and I can't wait for today's picture on Twitter at Dan Yorke State of Mind or DY State of Mind, whatever.
Be right back on for a final word. Stay with us. Wrap for my state of mind on this evening. Everything's up in the air, including the balls and the COVID virus. We'll keep touch with Andy and the sports world as we take it one day at a time during the summer. You have a great evening. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.